Welcome back, everybody, to Neutrality Studies. Today, we are joined once more by Rainer Rupp, a former German intelligence worker in NATO and spy for East Germany inside NATO, who is joining us again for his analysis of what's happening currently with Iran. Rainer, welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure. And just as you talked about NATO, but many people don't know, and NATO also regularly, although it's outside its realm, had a committee meeting on developments in the Middle East, where, of course, Iran featured most prominently. So I am not completely, even in the days of the 1970s and 80s, I already followed developments in Iran as we got the intelligence assessments, not only intelligence assessments, but also from learned professors. And I've always, must say, and been discussing that over our emails, the American analysts in the CIA were very good, excellent. And the Americans and the analysts and the politicians actually had access to very, very excellent scientists and who knew their stuff, be it on the Soviet Union, be it on Eastern Europe, be it even on the GDR. And I could judge that, of course, they knew their stuff. Yet their assessments never reached the top. In many ways, actually, what the intelligence assessments actually, which were worked at the lowest level, I mean at the lowest level, not of intelligence, but at the lowest level of the pecking order by the analysts, rarely arrived at the top of the decision-making political level. So I've seen that again and again, and we may talk about that later. But coming back to Iran, as I say, I'm not a newcomer. I've been following it ever since, and I've also familiarized myself with its history and its tradition, and it's a people of enormous strength, although it consists of various nationalities, with the Persians being a majority. But it is similar to the situation in Russia. When you ask somebody, for instance, in Bashkiria, where I've been for a fortnight some time ago, you ask a Muslim there, what are you? And he says, I'm a Russian. And then I'm a Bashkir. And then I am a Muslim. You see, in that order. And they were proud to be Russian. And so that, again, I found all over Russia. And unfortunately, personally, I've never been in Iran. I was probably getting too old to even to do it. But I read an awful lot about it. And I know they also have this resistance. They have the Shia have the somewhat similar to the Catholics, but not in that strong version. We call it in German Opferbereitschaft. They are prepared to bring sacrifices, and even their own life to sacrifice for the community, and to coerce a nation that is so, I mean, rooted in all these elements, a nation that identifies them, everybody, of course, there are always dissents here and there, but the majority, and we could see what the majority thinks. They were not driven at gunpoint into the streets to demonstrate in the hundreds, thousands, or even in the millions. We can see what they feel, and to think you could coerce them into kneeling down and accepting a foreign dictate is crazy.
It is. It is.
It's absolutely crazy. And if you're looking back to the nights, the Americans had already been twice in this situation, 2007 and 2012.
You made
They
that
had
point to me a
two
while ago.
aircraft carrier.
Sorry, you made the
Right.
point in an interview we did in December, and you underscored how this is not the first time and not even the second time. It's the third time, right, that the US is like driving its aircraft carriers in there, and how foolish it would be to do it now. Can you just repeat that and give us again like the rundown?
Yes, and when it came to the point of no return, they stood down because they realized, and that all their experts told them, they realized they would have to suffer heavy casualties. Is because of the geology also of Iran. There's no easy way in, because of the defense, because of the readiness of sacrificing themselves. I mean, what I just wanted to say in 2011-12, when the crisis started, spontaneously there was an office, or there were regional offices for people who were prepared to go as suicide on suicide missions against, if there would be an invasion, against American soldiers. Yeah, 25,000 within the first fortnight.
Well,
Were ready to sacrifice themselves as long as they could kill an American soldier. You have to imagine that, yeah. And I don't think it is any different now if they think of invading Iran. So they stood back.
hey, very brief intermission because I was recently banned from YouTube. And although I'm back, this can happen anytime again. So please consider subscribing not only here, but to my mailing list on Substack. That's pascalotta.substack.com. The link's going to be in the description below. And now back to the video. And so you very correctly made the point that it is a crazy thing to try to attack Iran, because Iran has so much capability of actually properly defending itself, and then the Americans and the Israelis took the decision anyhow. And we are seeing that they are not driving their ships anywhere close. These aircraft carriers are tucked away. One of them already burned, allegedly because of a fire in the in a washing room. Which, like, yeah, sure, let's believe
in
that.
the laundry. Took 36 hours to
extinguish that fire. Yeah.
Now Larry Johnson last night actually showed on his program, which I watched the end of it, showed a photograph of the aircraft carrier now, of the back. And this fire actually been tearing away steel and really melted steel and etc. Must have been a real strong laundry fire.
A very strong laundromat, huh? Yeah, it's like a American built, you know, it burns through steel. I mean, okay, so we know that these. I mean, in a sense, in the best case, it was hit by an Iranian missile. In the worst case, it starts. These things start combusting by themselves, right? So it's like the Iranians don't even need to hit it. But what does this tell us? Just also about the situation of the preparedness of the United States to go into something like this, and why then still take that decision, which now is obviously unfolding very catastrophically.
Now, I've just yesterday, I've been reading an article in Foreign Affairs, and they're coming around to the point also what we've been saying, that Trump completely misread and misunderstood the situation. I mean, you remember a day before he started bombing, he actually came to, he asked some people, I would have, why haven't they given up yet? Why haven't they surrendered yet? Seeing all this shiny armor which we are using to throw against them. he really thought he just had to drum the beat. And now we have even the Brits. I mean, I repeat that one. You probably know about it, but maybe if your listeners, subscribers, haven't yet heard of it. I've seen the assessment of the former MI6 military intelligence, head of the British military intelligence. He actually said, yes, that the Americans have lost it. Up to the first week, it was yet still, one didn't know. But after the first week, it became clear they lost it and they have to get out instead of doing more. They should, we did actually say declare victory and pull out, but he went on about the kind of, because he also has to be careful not to kick the Americans too hard onto the chin. But it is even clear to these people. And the German president yesterday, in front of Parliament, you might have heard it. Yeah, actually, which is a sensation in Germany, actually accused the Americans and the Israelis of a war of aggression. Yeah.
Well done.
This is, of course, right now here, this morning, all hell is loose. I mean, the president should stay out of politics, etc., and so on. Anyway, but back to Iran and to the point you actually wanted to inquire further, is the situation in natural gas.
Yes, exactly.
And I've been looking into that part in more detail, and I also found an assessment of someone from the actual gas industry who pointed to. I mean, I'm not the expert. I'm an economist, and by training, and I can put A and B together, and I can connect the dots. Now, the point is, and I think everybody sees it very clearly, that when the Americans attacked the gas fields, the LNG gas fields of Fars, and destroyed the LNG installations of the Iranians had warned before, if you do that, we're going to take out the Qatari LNG industry. Now, the next day, the Iranians fired some missiles against the Qatari industry, where they destroyed only about 15%. They didn't destroy everything, only about 15% of the actual gas production facility. But more importantly, they destroyed 1 out of the 2 Qatari gas liquefaction installation. I mean, the gas needs to be liquefied.
Yeah.
So 1 out of 2 means 50% of exports is gone, even if the actual gas production would still be working, but all you can do is fire it off into the air.
Right.
Or flame it into the air. So, as a result, as the Strait of Hormuz is closed anyway, the situation is as follows. If we are looking at the global gas market, traditionally, the biggest exporter of LNG was not Russia. It's only a newcomer to that market, a real newcomer. They did it by a pipeline. So the biggest exporters of LNG by far was Qatar, and the next biggest is the United States. They were really competing for the number 1 position on the global LNG market. If you now look at the situation after the attack on the Pars attack, you see a situation in which suddenly the Americans are the number 1. They are the only ones who actually can provide now liquefied natural gas. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Even if the Strait of Hormuz is open again, or is open for some country, the gas can't come through. Maybe some of Qatar, if the Qataris are nice. But it still means that the Americans are dominating this market now. Now, this is an enormous capital gain for an industry that was one of the key supporters of the Trump election. The other ones were the armaments industries. Now, these two actually industries have made enormous gains already within the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the war. I mean, the armament industry anyway. If America loses or wins, they always make money. And the gas industry, of course, they will double their, if not triple their gains. And so there is another, and therefore the question is, was this attack on the Iranian gas facility, was that a premeditated attack on to eliminate Qatar as a competitor?
What?
Because there is another bonus in this situation. China was the most important importer of the Qatari and the Iranian gas. So now China still needs LNG. Where does it go? Russia can't help, not for LNG. So it will have to ask the Americans. So that gives, of course, the Americans a very, very, very geopolitical advantage. They can, at least in the short up to medium term. So, which might also be one of the reasons why the Chinese are relatively quiet in condemning the U.S. operation in the Middle East or against Iran. What they do without everybody knowing is another matter, but publicly they are actually standing down, calling for everybody should put their weapons down, etc., which is absolutely, from my point of view, idiotic to ask now publicly Iran to stop now that they have the upper hand against the bully, to stop punishing the bully. This is not. And the Iranians are quite clear. They say, no, I mean, we're not interested. They've said it again yesterday. No discussions, no ceasefire. We have our demands, and one of these demands is to make the Middle East American free.
Yeah.
Get rid of all the bases. Because the only way for Iran to be safe is no more U.S. bases.
Yeah, and right before this discussion,
so they can't be stabbed in the back again.
Right before this discussion with you, I've talked to Mohammad Marandi in Tehran, and he says exactly that. I mean, the demand is pretty clear. The Americans have to go out, the reparations have to be paid, and actually a third one is that their allies in the region must be involved in this, and they do not want that Israel takes the whole south of Lebanon. I mean, that's just that kind of thing also must end. So they are now and they're saying, like, those are the demands for us to stop the war that you began. The question though is, and I asked him about this as well, isn't this actually playing into the hands of the Americans because the Americans now get the whole LNG benefit. They get more money also through the increase of oil prices, although they want that to stop at a certain level, and they get to hamper China. And this is also the interpretation of Brian Berletic, who says, like, this is mainly an assault on China's ability to keep its economic growth and its economic momentum going. How do you see that? and in this entire spiel, so the Americans basically just don't only attack Iran, but they also throw the entire Gulf like under the bus, right? And say like, whatever. I mean, we don't need you. You're basically a burden, and you're not going to absorb, and they are absorbing the kinetic attacks from Iran, right? So how do you interpret this and the strategy behind it? Because is it just folly? Is it just stupidity to do this? Or is there a very cold, rational calculation that is actually unfolding?
I am not yet of my opinion on this one, just to paraphrase it. I have the same problem you just presented. Is it a cold-blooded calculation, or is it yes, I mean a devilish but genius plan, or is it just stupidity and etc.? Could it be both? I mean, if we are looking at at Washington, there've never been there've always been different factions and jockeying for positions, and not only positions but pushing their agendas through. And if you frame and your agenda properly, I think Trump and Hexes and his other stupid people that he surrounded himself with. I do not add Vance, C.D. Vance, to that crowd, but the others around him may have fallen also for this. But the real agenda runs in the background, and that could very well be, because if I am not religious, but I do know the Bible quite well, and I remember the saying there, you will know them by their fruits. Yeah, and if we look at the fruits, we see the pattern. But is that intended or not? This is a question. I don't know it. Haven't got enough knowledge about it.
And in terms of strategy, one thing we must give to Donald Trump is that he made himself very successfully unpredictable. The guy tomorrow could drop a nuclear bomb on Iran. It would be in character, and it would be in character. He could withdraw, declare victory, withdraw. It would be in character. I mean, he has basically all options open, at least in terms of what would make sense for the future of what he already did in the past, because he successfully established that anything he said in the past can be immediately reversed, and vice versa, and you can do just anything under the sun. And actually, the media accepts it, and the Congress accepts that. So it's in a very sick sense, he has maneuvered himself into really a position of anything goes.
Yeah, well, again, I asked myself, and I even discussed it with my wife yesterday. If you look at the American policy, or and you see it's even been discussed in the policy papers in the past, the use and the utility of the madman theory.
Yes.
If you present your president or your leadership, primarily the president, as uncalculable, emotional, etc., you can actually gain some advantages with your opponent or enemy, because you must be careful because this guy is absolutely irrational. Now the question is this guy Trump irrational, really irrational, or is it part of the presentation?
Yeah.
Personally, I think he is actually he has lost his marbles. I came to the point about a year ago, after when the Ukraine crisis was still boiling hot, when the Europeans finally understood that Trump says exactly that what his latest visitor told him. So they actually they realized that, and they began to send someone from Europe just before the next big meeting to brief or to visit the president, and he came out with the new points and etc. He accepted it, and he repeated the position then, or he included the positions of the Europeans. Completely had forgotten about what had been discussed in Alaska, and so on. So I first noted that. What does that remind me? That behavior, that you are just repeating what happened yesterday, and that is one of the signs of Alzheimer.
Yes.
And as you know, the saying that the only good thing about Alzheimer is you meet new people every day. Uh,
He,
that's really
the way he speaks
and
doesn't
you
remind
have
me that doesn't remind me that much yet of this one, but one of the things is, of course, that whether he has Alzheimer and whatever it is or not, um, there needs to be an answer to that, and it seems to me that the Iranians are trying to counter this through their own calculatability. I mean, as unpredictable as Trump is, they try to be as predictable as possible by saying, you attack gas field, we attack gas field. You attack nuclear plant, we attack nuclear plant. You destroy a city, we destroy a city, period. So stop trying, because you know exactly what's going to come. Isn't it that one?
Yeah, yeah. I basically the Iranians' policy now is, no matter what Trump says, we couldn't care less. We're going to do our thing. That is how I see it.
Right. And there's just really just one thing that strikes me as odd when we think of the president as being maybe truly insane. It's, the tweets that he tweets out on Truth Social, these comments, they look as if though he just made them up, like out of the blue and whatnot. But they do not contain writing errors. They do not contain spelling mistakes, which tells me that at least they went through an editorial process. But in my view, more likely, they are actually part of just Team Trump as a product of several people coming out there, because he did this in the beginning on Twitter in his first term, and his real tweets that he tweeted out on his phone, they were full of writing mistakes, and now they're gone. So something's different.
Maybe he speaks into it.
True. AI.
That is what? Yeah. If you talk to it, it corrects, autocorrect, and if it is with the artificial intelligence corrected, it is grammatically correct and autographically correct. I haven't yet tried it out, but I'm quite sure it will work. And but that is basically not really relevant if he is mad or not, because my point about the American president and his power has always been, way back over the decades, and I used in speeches as the example, if Mother Teresa, you might remember her, she's been sainted, Mother Teresa, who was in India and helping the Catholic Church. If Mother Teresa, by some miracle, was made American president, I asked then, would something change in American foreign policy?
Right.
No, because he is just a figurehead. He won't do anything. I mean, we've seen it in his first term. He gave twice the order while he was still sane. He gave twice the order of American troops out of out of Iraq twice. They stopped him. The last one actually was then stopped by his Undersecretary of Defense, delayed until he was out of office. And then his Undersecretary of Defense went public and said, "Look here, that's how I've been cheating and stopped the presidential order." Yeah, you must imagine that. And nobody said anything against it because he was doing what the deep, or let me call, I don't like to call it deep state, but what the ruling class, that was for me, what the ruling class considered to be still the best way of doing, because Iraq was considered as a very important asset, and you're not going to let it go just like that. But now Trump succeeded in getting the Americans out of Iraq. You might have followed the situation.
Did they actually?
By the way, NATO too. I mean, all the French are out, the Brits are out, another European country who had, I think Poles too. They all out of Iran, out of Iraq. The French got an Iranian missile on their joint French-Kurdish base, and then they disappeared home. And I don't know what else. And the Americans had done the stupid thing of bombing the Shiite mobilization force, which is integrated in the Iraqi military, in the regular military, and of course, through a corruption coercion, the Iraqi government is still considered pro-American, but now they are very difficult to continue to be it's very difficult for them to continue to be pro-American. And the Iraqi government now has officially allowed the Shiite mobilization forces, which are part of an armed part of the regular Iraqi army, to, in self-defense, fight back against the Americans. That means the Americans have an army of 250,000 Shiites armed regularly, mobilized against themselves in Iraq. So they've been attacking with missiles and rockets. The embassy compound is a sprawling part in Baghdad. I've seen it before, and and now they stopped and they said, we stopped. You can get out, but you're not coming back. So.
When was that? Like because if I remember correctly, about 2 or 3 years ago, actually, the Iraqi parliament passed a bill asking the Americans to leave, and the Americans just never did. They just ignored that. But now, so do you think the Americans are now being thrown out of Iraq for good, or how many troops are left, or how much also CIA personnel and so on?
The only American base that is left is actually in Kurdish territory, in pure Kurdish territory.
So,
and everything else at the embassy. Then the embassy, they offered I've forgotten the name, but it's something mobilization force, a Shiite militia which is integrated in the army. They gave him an ultimatum, the American embassy, an ultimatum saying either you're out or we're going to start bombarding you.
Really? Well, I didn't even hear about that. But this means they really managed to bring up to unify the opposition in the entire region against them. And I cannot imagine the Gulf states to be very happy with the Americans either. I mean,
No. But even in amongst the Gulf states, they are not united in their views vis-à-vis Iran. You know, although Qatar has been under fire from Iran, they do not want to join there is a movement amongst, it's primarily United Arab Emirates and Kuwait, to join the Americans and also launch raids or bomb Iran. There's much more to bomb. Qatar is not interested. Interestingly enough, Saudi Arabia also is not interested in that thing. They made something, but they don't want to join Kuwait and United Arab Emirates. And they are not, they are also, which brings me, of course, to the point, and I think that has been discussed already before, and everybody actually must see it. The US bases in the Middle East, in these Arab countries, were considered to be, by the ruling emirs and kings, or whatever they call the ruling families, as their personal protection against. They have also Shiites there, they have different nationalities here, and they have lots and lots of foreigners there. And a US base there is their personal protection. That was the deal. And for that, we also sell our oil or gas in dollars, etc., etc. That's a tit for tat. Now, the US bases who were supposed to provide protection, now they put these countries and these ruling classes into the visor of the Iranian missiles.
Yeah, they've become
They are actually attracting danger now, these US bases.
Missile magnets, as in here, you need to strike us in order. I mean, this is, it must lead to a reversal of the entire security thinking in the area. I mean, anything else is just to me unconceivable.
Absolutely.
The only point that Mohammad Marandi made is that they look, the American bases are not just protection to the outside, they're also protection to the inside. They are also supposed to protect the monarchies from their own populations, and that one is probably a quagmire that's difficult to solve.
That's just what I just said. Yeah, it's also protection from the inside, outside and inside. And not only against the foreigners, but also inside, but also, yes, there's the Shiites and minorities and so on. So another point that came to my mind, I've been writing on it last night still, was how unprepared and which shows how unprepared the Americans went into this horrible adventure. It shows that the US bases in the region don't have any underground shelter for their own armed forces.
Yes.
Nothing. From the moment the air defense doesn't work, they're like rabbits on the field. So what did they do? They moved them into hotels. Entire stories were full of soldiers, which explains, of course, why Iranian missiles. We were wondering why Iranian missiles were attacking some certain floors of international hotels, because apparently American soldiers were put up there.
Speaking
of special forces, intelligence units, and so on. Yeah. So it's I think it's such a hubris to think, we are the greatest and the super duper weapon, we are absolutely safe, you don't need to worry. And now they want to do the same thing with their Marines and say 2,500 or 5,000, about 2,500 so far of the 82nd Special Forces Division.
Do you think they will?
What can be done there? What?
Do you think they will do it? Do you think they will
Yeah,
actually send troops?
according to the 82nd Airborne Division consists of various specialist companies and elements for commando use, basically in and out operations. So they're not a fighting force in a traditional way, not a ground fighting force, and that they're highly trained for these kind of things, like they went into these type of things, where they went into Venezuela to get Maduro and wife, and so they are apparently, according to my information, they have already arrived partially in Jordan and partially in Israel. So what by cargo planes? So how will they be used? I mean, one can think not for a ground operation as such, but I mean an invasion, but probably for some commando operations in, I don't know. I mean, they talk about to go and find the uranium, but I would
Because if we
that would be highly dangerous, I would think.
it would be super dangerous. And, on the one hand, if you try to take an island, then these troops would be just, again, rabbits on a field on the island. And if you try to bring them into mainland Iran, then you're talking about dropping a couple of thousand people on enemy territory and supposing that they can somehow at a beach or something create a bridgehead. I mean, it seems even more insane than the rest that was going on. Which just keeps me wondering. I mean, mustn't people now in the United States, I mean, in elite circles, actually start trying to pressure the White House to stop this, because it's obviously going into such a negative direction. I mean, and in the CIA, the analysts, the people who actually understand how how this works on the ground. I mean, we're just onlookers, and we can see that this is a really absolutely horrible idea for the US for so many reasons. Shouldn't the opposition be growing inside the US, and maybe also the vice president at some point say like, dude, we can't do this anymore?
It depends. There was this guy, the Homeland Security, who stepped down, who, by the way, was a Special Forces commander, and he had Special Forces experience, was many times in the war, but he primarily argued, as that's why he is an anti-Semite. He's been stamped as an anti-Semite because he warned in his open letter that no American soldier should be sacrificed for Israeli illegally Israeli aims. Yeah, and that is not true. Naturally, that is Trump can't allow that. But they're interestingly enough, last night I also saw the headline that Mar-a-Lago, they had some regional elections in the district, and for the first time since donkey's years, the Republicans won. Not the Republicans, I mean the Democrats won for the first time in donkey's years. Yes, so, first time in just where Trump has his palace. So he must get the message somehow.
Yeah, so okay, that's just maybe brings us to the last topic I wanted to look at with you, whether this intelligence that that we all think the United States has through the CIA and Britain must have through the MI6 and the other services, and Israel has through Mossad. My gut feeling was always that these intelligence services must have the most accurate picture of the enemy, not because they like them, but because they need to study them properly. And what we get in the masses is then the propaganda, right? We are fed the propaganda through BBC, CNN, and so on, New York Times, and downstream. But they must have a proper assessment of what's happening. And you, in an email, told me, Pascal, this might actually not be the case. Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, do you remember the Echelon case? Echelon, your Swiss compatriot, a compatriot of yours, was made the chief, the investigator of a special group by the European Parliament in, it must have been 25 years ago. Because I just came out of jail at the time. And it was, Echelon doesn't mean anything to you, no?
No, I don't know him.
I described it as a huge vacuum cleaner in space, which sucks up all electronic signals, analyzes them, it was then already, analyzes them, translate them in their various, if there are various languages. Subsequently, that's NSA business then. Subsequently, you have research for algorithms, and you have humans looking over them, specialists on this subject and other subject, and so on. Now, a few days, I mean, they've been listening, they knew everything on personal telephones, on the politicians, everything. Remember, one element out of that subsequent, I mean, the echelon, you may have a look at it. That was 25 years ago with old technology. Imagine,
Activity,
I mean,
large scale
generation.
A large-scale spying activity.
How many generational processes that was? Now, Echelon at the time was listening to, I mean, everything, every phone call, every mobile phone call, every fax, everything. Now, nowadays, it is, of course, much faster, much bigger. You have the supercomputers connected, automatic translation, etc., etc., etc. It is even much, much, much worse. I haven't got recent information on it, but it was actually Larry Wilkerson, the former head of staff of the Black American foreign minister. I know him personally, and he recently pointed out in a discussion that during the Gulf War, of course, we knew everything. I mean, he was talking about, that Trump didn't know, or the White House didn't know about this, and that how the Iranians would react. And they said this is a big Molochs, and because at the time of the Gulf War, we knew exactly what Schröder said to his French colleague. We knew exactly the positions, what they talked to with the Russians. So we knew exactly what Saddam Hussein said. We knew it all. And that was then, that was a bit follow on of that was then the results of Echelon. Nowadays, as I say, it's even generational, technological generations further developed. So, in this, I came across this in in the 1980s. It did not yet exist to that extent, but as I was quite frequently in Washington, regularly meeting in the CIA, and I came across the FBIS was sitting in their offices. There was always the FBIS booklets. No, DNA for what? FBI, Foreign Broadcasting Information Service. It is called stood for, and for official use only. So it was not confidential as such, but it couldn't go out into the public. So I was allowed to take some of them away, and I realized it was, it was DIN A4, kind of, with about, on average, 30 to 40 pages, and it covered Western Europe, Eastern Europe, the Soviet Union, Central Asia, China, North North, then South Africa, Latin America, and a number of other specific areas. And if you put them all together, it was a pile like that every day, which came from the NSA every day. And they already then had listened. I mean, at the time, that was end of the 1980s. At the time, I got on Japan, for instance. Do you remember the economic crisis developing in Japan at the time?
You mean in the 1990s, 92, 93?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, the bubble, the end of the
when the real estate bubble, when the real estate of Tokyo was worth more than the whole of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It had to go bust, and ever since. Now, at that time, however, the Europeans still were admiring Japan for everything. And in these NSA of Japan, I could follow exactly what this banker had talked to another banker, etc., etc., etc. And I realized this can't go well. This is going bust. And I was betting with a colleague of the EU that this is going to go bust for a crate of champagne, and I won it. It was this kind of information, of course, also on economics, defense, politics, politicians, etc., for every region. So I asked my friend in the CIA if I couldn't be put on the mailing list. And actually, he put me on the mailing list, and via the US NATO embassy, with a few days of delay, every time I got a pile like that on my desk. And I put it in our archive, and that was one of the reasons why I always was considered to be the best informed person in NATO on every region. And that gives you the kind of idea of what is going on there.
Yeah, but if they have all of this information,
now
they have this analysis. Why would then they do such a foolish thing? So either the analysis, as you said in the beginning, doesn't pass to the top, or the level of analysis is actually degraded.
That is exactly the point. That's exactly the point. And I can maybe some other time when I can give you a detailed story which I lived through, which makes that point clear. It has to do with NATO, with the Soviet military spending, military expenditure, which has been blown up by the CIA, or not the CIA. Yes, they say CIA, but not by the analysts, but by people at other levels above, to to Soviet military spending was then considered to be almost double of what the United States and Europe, NATO Europe, were doing. Now, in doing so, you had to use many manipulations and tricks and so on. It was absolutely idiotic, but it served the purpose of pressuring NATO countries as of 1979 to have a real increase of military expenditure of 3%. So what we've seen recently is not new. We had it before, and out of this, it would take now too long to go into that entire story, because I played an important role why it actually didn't work. Because in the end, in the subsequent years, it was only the real increases were only between 1 or maximum 2%, because the then German ambassador to NATO, Dr. Wick, who had been ambassador to Russia before, and subsequently was the head of the BND, he asked me what I could do to put the spanners into the wheels, because the Germans did not. Then it was a Christian Democrats in the government in Germany, because the Christian Democrats, the Christian Democrat-led government, was not at all in favor with the American pressure or intention to put more money into business. They wanted to rather build a pipeline, the gas pipeline, the first gas pipeline with Russia. And so in this whole part, the CIA plays a role, and I killed the thing. I risked, actually, there was a letter to the Secretary General asking for to be fired. Rupp should be fired immediately. But the German ambassador stopped that, because I had pointed it out. I might run that risk. And then at the later stage, when we had another so-called expert meeting with the CIA and other intelligence services on Soviet military spending, the head of the CIA delegation, after the lunch break, took me aside and said, "Mr. Rupp, thank you so much. We always try to put this kind of thing through, but our information never makes it to the top. Our analysis never makes it to the top."
Yeah.
But
so in short, like,
it's a longer story, but
all of these stories are pretty complex. But when we break it down, so the information doesn't necessarily make it to the top, and if it does, it might still meet with ideological opposition, as we had seen.
It is massaged in a way. It is massaged in a way that fits the policy aims of these people. They do not react to reality. They react to what they want, and their underlings massage it in a way that that their aims are supported.
Well, that is a huge.
As I said right at the beginning, the Americans have fantastic scientists. I mean, not only in politics and in history, etc. I mean, if you go into into archaeology, etc., they're great people, and they're intelligent, and they have but it doesn't help if things don't come. But they do say, "Oh, we consulted with this one, and we consulted with that one, and we came to the conclusion."
It's theater. It's make believe. Yeah. And Rainer, this is fascinating, and I would like to talk more, but we've already reached an hour, so I suggest that we do an update again in the near future.
Yeah.
People who want to follow you, they should go where to find your writings?
I don't have a page really. There's someone else who collects my articles in German, who puts them in on Rainer Rupp DE, I think it is. But I have nothing really to do with him. I said, he asked me if he can do it, and I said yes. Why I don't do it myself? I don't want to spend the time putting it in, and if I do it, it will probably be hacked and all kind of things. I spend some time on it, which I don't want to.
Well, then all the better that you have somebody who, a fan work who does this for you, rainerrupp.de. And everybody, please stay tuned for more infos from Rainer in the near future on this channel. Rainer Rupp, thank you very much for your time today.